Have you watched lots and lots of how to draw videos, followed along step by step, studied the marks, the lines used by your favorite artists, done lots and lots of exercises of drawing straight lines, drawing circles, hatching different patterns in boxes and so forth, and feel that you understand everything that's happening, that you're doing, and yet when you sit down to start an original drawing, one that someone else hasn't done before you, you end up staring at a blank sheet of paper and you just don't know where to start, what to put on the paper, have this sense of impending doom hanging over you, and starting to feel overwhelmed with all of the possibilities of starting, of progressing, not knowing what to do where, and feeling that you're just going to end up in a tangled mess. Perhaps left wondering, what is it that I don't know yet that I need to know? What's the technique that I don't have yet? What's the thing? What's the secret? What's the key that will somehow unlock whatever the barrier is that seems to keep me in this place? Let me say, trust this feeling. If you're feeling there's something I don't yet know that will make all the difference when I start, that will give me the direction, the confidence, the whatever I don't yet have, trust that feeling, because it's almost certainly true. There is something that you don't yet have, which is, well, at the very least, extremely helpful, if not essential, to have the drawing experience that you're wanting to have. Something that really will unlock the drawing experience and process from start to finish. Something that will tell you how to start, when to start, where to start, what to do, and most importantly, even when to stop doing it. But it's not something you're going to probably learn in a video on hacks and tricks and shortcuts and tips. It's not something that you're even going to be holding a pen or a pencil when you do. And possibly the biggest thing to overcome with it is that you've possibly already come across it, but have dismissed it as not being really very important or relevant or practical. You could have easily thought, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Come on, get on with it. Let me see some drawing. Let me see the marks on the paper. Show me how to hold the pen, how to do this, how to do that. Let me follow along or give me something to do afterwards. I want to see ink going on the paper and I want to put ink on the paper myself. That's how I'm going to learn. Our focus is very much on show me what to do. Show me what to do, and then I'll copy you doing it, and this is how I'll learn. This is how I'll get the drawing on the paper that I want, that you get on the paper. But the problem with this is that we focus on what do we do, show me what to do, let me do it along with you, when we don't understand why we're doing it. How do I know what to do? As in me, when I do a drawing, how do I know where to start, what marks to put for what purpose? It comes from understanding why I'm doing it. What is the drawing process? How do I understand drawing, big picture, in general terms? What happens when I see a photo and I have to translate it into ink marks to create some sort of copy, representation of my original? Because these questions and answers end up being my guides for directing me to what to do. I only know what to do when I know what end goal I'm wanting for what purpose. There is no one way to draw, and there's no one way to draw a specific thing. There's no one way to draw a tree. There's no one way to draw a house. There's no one way to draw a scene. It all depends on what I'm trying to achieve. It all depends on my purpose, my end goal, the end result I want to have, and how I understand that process as happening. what may sound, particularly when we start to learn drawing and we're very focused on holding pens and putting marks on paper and getting those to look right, because let's face it, that's what we see. So it's understandable we focus on that and think that's the really important thing, that all this other stuff can just seem very theoretical, very blah, blah, blah. I've even had some comments on some of my videos where I talk about process to that effect. But in the end, as far as my experience is, it's not actually having the skill to put the marks that we want on the paper that's the hard thing, that's the challenging thing. I mean, they do need to be learned, and there is some effort in particularly some of those. But in the end, the real challenge is knowing what marks to put where for what purpose, what order to put them in, how to progress a painting or a drawing from start to finish. The answers to all of these questions come from my understanding of what am I doing when I draw and how am I wanting my drawing to look at the end. When I have these two bookends in place, what to do, how to do it, to get to where I want to go, almost does itself. It's my understanding of these theoretical issues, it may seem, that actually guides me, that directs me, that makes it clear to me where I start, what I do first, what I do next, how I do it, how I bring it together. Because the technical skills, the things that maybe I learned as tricks or hacks or tips or whatever, they're just tools to use, but those tools themselves don't tell me what to do. They're things I pick up and use for a greater purpose. It's this theoretical understanding of what I'm doing when I draw and what I'm wanting to end up with that actually directs me and tells me which tools to pick up, which techniques to use, when, where, and how to use them. Every time someone says, what's the right way to crosshatch or draw trees, it indicates to me that that person hasn't yet reached the point of understanding that drawing is a process of understanding that guides what we do. There is no one way to do it. And because we're all individuals, because in the end we're going to understand that process differently, then how we express that process in our marks will be different for each of us, which is why we all end up developing different drawing styles. I certainly discovered the truth of this in my own drawing experience. I had the advantage of making all these videos because what they forced me to do was actually to put into words things that were just vague thoughts swirling around in my head, things that perhaps I wouldn't have had the discipline, the self-discipline, to actually ask, what really is happening here? Why am I doing this? What am I trying to do? What's happening when I draw? What's happening in this translation process in my head from my reference, whatever it is, to end up creating the marks on the paper that make the drawing that we see? What's happening here? What I found was the more clearly I understood the process, the more I came to understand the big picture issues in the drawing process as far as I understand them, the clearer how I was to draw became. The more obvious it became to me how I would start a drawing, where I would start it, why I would start it in that place, and then what I would do next, how I would progress the drawing. As I got greater clarity in what I was doing when I drew, big picture wise, the clearer how I would achieve that became. The clearer what techniques to use where, when, how to combine marks together became. And what I also found happening was I was able to focus on the things, the elements of the technical side that would most create, that would most bring out the bigger picture issues that I was wanting to see happen in my drawing. My drawing began to feel easier and easier to do, not because I was becoming more skilled at putting marks on the paper, but because as I developed and grew and became consistent in my understanding of the drawing process, it became well, more obvious how to get there. It became more obvious what techniques to use and how to use them in the best way I could use them to get to the place I was wanting to get to in my finished drawing. When I started drawing, I'm no longer picking up a pen and almost experimenting on the paper, hoping that at least some of the time it comes together looking half reasonable, half decent. Rather, the understanding that I've, in a sense, been forced to put into words for these videos actually picks me up and carries me along, and making the choices very straightforward most of the time. The real drawing breakthrough for me came in understanding the importance of the understanding, not in developing technical skills. I could develop them, but still not know how to use them if I didn't have this understanding. This is why so many of my videos talk in detail about my process, about understanding bigger picture things when we draw than simply how to put marks on the paper to create a certain effect. So if you'd like to hear me talk more about my process, my understanding of the drawing process, and then how that guides what I actually do, I have plenty, hundreds of videos that do this. And you'll find them on my playlist of tips for the self-taught artists. Because one of the things we get when we do a course that we don't get when we're navigating our own drawing journey is a big picture framework. Now, there is more than one, and my way of understanding may not be the best one for you and for where you're wanting to go with your drawing, but it can be a starting point that you can challenge, amend, change to come up with the one that best works for you. If you're sick of staring at a blank sheet of paper and not knowing what to do, despite all the videos you've watched and all the practice exercises you've done, why not give this a go? Why not work at developing an understanding of the drawing process? Why not work at developing an understanding of the drawing process? Even use some of my understanding as a starting point for working out your own. But let me encourage you, it was the thing that transformed my drawing experience. And I can't see why it couldn't do the same for yours. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Hope this has been helpful, but in the end, whatever you draw, however you draw it, whatever your understanding of the process is or the goal you're trying to reach in doing it, make sure you still have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.